Well, welcome to the Make Music Income podcast. I'm Eric Copeland of Make Music Income, and I'm here with my partner, Stephen Bedell from the Production Music Academy. So right off the bat, folks, let's get real.
Let's get real.
Let's get real. When you are making music income and the money is flowing and let's say you're doing it full time, it is a pretty great life. I mean, it is a pretty sweet life. Everybody envies you because you're like doing music all the time and they're off working a job, and your wife or your partner is proud of you and they feel safe because you're providing for them and your family and you're doing what you love. They're so proud. All is right on heaven and earth. You feel like a genius in living your best life. But when checks start bouncing or your checking account balance is negative because a bill came in and a client didn't pay, and some bill came early and you have no savings because you've used it all up because it's been a hard year. And if it sounds like I'm speaking from experience, it may be true. Suddenly your wife is looking at you sideways like, why aren't you taking care of me? And your parents are suggesting going back to school or maybe it's time you get a real job, son. Mm-hmm. Or bills are coming, you're getting behind because studio or production or royalty income has dried up for whatever reason. Suddenly making a full-time life in music seems like the stupidest idea anybody ever had. So today, we want to talk about the reality of making music income good, bad, and ugly, full-time, part-time, whatever time, and just kind of really explore what this feels like. Because I know a lot of you listening to this podcast would say, man, it would be my dream life to live full-time making music income. That would be the stuff right there. So let's talk about the realities of that. But first, Steve, what you been up to this week?
I had a great week. I just put out a video yesterday about producing lo-fi for libraries, and I'm just about to upload some new music to Artlist. And I should mention, and I haven't mentioned this yet because I haven't been totally sure about where I stand with the whole program and whether it's cool to talk about it. But I did talk with this team, the Artlist Originals team, about my working with them. And so yeah, just full disclosure, I have been actually working with the Artlist Originals team for a number of weeks now, and
I think you should tell people that also means Motion Array Originals, right?
Yeah, so I'm assuming that. Actually, I haven't, I'm only assuming that. I haven't totally confirmed that, but I'm assuming that when you see a Motion Array Originals posted on Motion Array, they're coming from the Artlist Originals team. It's just changing the name, of course, for the library. So yeah, I applied about a month ago, I guess, and was accepted. And I can't speak to specifics about the contract. It's meant to be kept private, but I am basically just finishing up my first commission from them. So they send you kind of like, a work order or a commission, and they ask you to write something in a certain style, and you work directly with a few of their team members on this project. And it's been a great experience. They sent me a song to complete initially, and it's sort of a test run. So they're kind of just sussing you out at first and seeing how the whole thing works. And it was a pleasure. The whole thing was great. They were really happy with the work I sent them. It was a lo-fi track, which should be going live on the site and Motion Array probably in a couple of weeks or something like that. But I will promote the release on social media. And I'm happy to kind of open up that session to the Academy members, and it's a great track. I'm really stoked on it. I spent a lot of time on it, and it's my first originals composition, and they just sent me another commission for 3 more tracks. So I'm on a roll, and I'm feeling great about that, and it's keeping me super busy, and I'm really, really grateful because it is regular, steady income, hopefully for the next little while for me, and I'm just grateful. I feel awesome about it, and that's what's kept me busy this last week. But Other than that, man, just trucking along as usual, writing some orchestral stuff as well on the side, and working on this crazy April challenge, which is like basically a gigantic collaboration between, I don't know, maybe a dozen or more members of the Academy. I've already started that. I need you on the keys, man, by the way.
I'm going to try to get to it tomorrow. I promise.
I know you're a busy
You're
man.
moving so fast. You're moving too fast for the...
I got to move fast because we only have 2 weeks before the end of April. I'm just like, well, how are we through half this month already?
I'm going to add some percussion, and then I'm going to do some keys to what's going on. I can't imagine how you're going to put all this together, but
I've already begun. I got about 5 or 6 drums and percussion ideas the other day, and I stitched it all together, and it actually sounds really good. I was worried it was going to be like a total chaotic mess, but it was great. The members totally followed the instructions to the T, and it sounds awesome. So that's what's keeping me busy this last week. How about you, man?
Well, and before I start mine, I want to make sure that we let you know, because I know we're going to get questions since this is really the first time you've talked about the Motion, the Artlist Originals.
Yeah, and we can dig into it more on the next podcast maybe, but
and maybe this or it's some video you want to do, but the first question out of every single person's mouth listening and or watching this is, how do I apply? And I was looking for that email. I've got it somewhere. The best probably place to ask is content@motionarray.com, and they will direct you to the Artlist Originals link. Or if you've got it, you may want to put it in the comments or something down there.
Yeah, there is an application process, so they will suss you out.
And there's a link they have that you just go right to it, like when you apply to Artlist. And so but I'll try to find that information and put it in the comments, if nothing else, below, because I know everybody's going to want to know, how can I apply? And you should. Why shouldn't you? Why not?
Yeah.
All right. Well, I was at my second week this week, all week at my new full-time music income, which I will be announcing next week and talking a little bit more next week on my live video. I'm going to try to do better on my live videos. I ended up going live and putting a thumbnail up 5 minutes before I'm going live. I need to do what some of these other people do when they say, hey, I'm going live in 3 days or, in 4 days or whatever.
Right.
Make sure I got to get better at that, because I'm flying by the seat of my pants a little bit right now, because I do have a new full-time kind of thing that goes from 3 to 11 every day.
Yeah.
And so I have to leave here at 2 to get there. So it is a music job, a music income, but it's not something, I don't have to do a lot of preparation for it until I'm there, but it only gives me from 8 or 9 o'clock to 2 o'clock to do anything, including my videos for this channel, including all my client work, including all my composing. Mm-hmm. So it's like having 4 jobs at once.
Yeah, it's crazy. You're busy.
It's a little crazy. And so I've probably starting May 1st, I will start saying no to more things and outsourcing a lot of things as far as clients are concerned, which I usually have done through the years. That's nothing new necessarily. I just took a lot more on myself during these past few years to make a little bit more, but now I can offload programming and offload, first things that I usually do. Offload videos.
You could even offload your video editing to someone on Fiverr.
Well, I do. I've done that already on Upwork, basically.
Really?
I did use Fiverr. I found a person on Fiverr that did a bunch for me.
Oh, cool.
But the problem with Fiverr sometimes is you're working with people in other countries, and the communication can be a little wonky.
Yes.
And so I've probably got to find someone, a couple people who are available, quick, that can churn stuff out for me. So because this morning I was working on a video that I've got to have ready by tomorrow.
Maybe
there's next week.
Maybe one of our listeners is a top-notch video editor.
Yeah, and you don't even have to be a top-notch video editor, because this is just music, lyric videos with stock video behind them.
Okay.
And then and then lyrics on the screen that animate in some way.
Okay.
And so I like I said, I've had people who do this, and they already have the cool lyric things going on.
Yeah.
But anyway, that's kind of an outlier. So my week has been filled with continuing to try to do work and do this other work. And I did New Music Tuesday, which went well, but I had another I had some audio issues and a stream fail. And so I'm using Restream, which I really like as far as the way it works.
Are you connecting with an Ethernet cable? Because that's
Yes. Yeah. I try to go to Ethernet. Like I have, you have the ability to. I'm hooked up to Ethernet right now. I could switch over to Wi-Fi if I have to for do certain things, but usually when I'm streaming like this, I try to keep it on Ethernet.
Right.
And that's a pretty fast signal. I could go test what we've got right now, but it's usually really fast. And but it went well, and people are having fun with that. I want to try to figure out maybe how to make each one different. Similar to what you do with certain styles, or but in some ways it's fun to get lots of different styles, to get a synthwave thing.
I think people would enjoy the variety. Yeah.
I think it's more about, and of course you're getting the people, and I don't really care. I'm not trying to bring the world in necessarily. I'm just, right now what I'm finding is things like this, things like my live music. I just did a live this morning about music publishing, which that's going to be a harder sell, because people look at music publishing and they go, oh, music publishing. But it has been a consistent music income for me. And really, everything that you've been making recently, from Artlist to Motion Array and all that, is a form of music publishing. As a matter of fact, I kind of classified stock music as a sync income, because I think it's kind of like a sync upfront.
It is in a way, yeah.
I'm not sure if it fits as a mechanical, because mechanical is stuff you sell, online. It probably could be a mixture of performance, but BMI's not paying you for it. You're getting paid straight from a company, and just like you would from a sync library that would pay you an upfront, and this stock library is paying you an upfront, the upfront fees monthly. So I kind of classified it under there. But anyway, you can see that video in my live stuff or my content stream about music publishing. And then just client things, trying to keep up with all the client stuff. Haven't really composed much this week. I've worked on a few music things, but I need to get this all settled and get to the point where I do like doing my YouTube channel and all these things and this thing. But you were going through this very thing. What was it, last week or week before last, where you're saying, dude, I've got to streamline my time, because I only have so much time to make videos. And well, I haven't put out an edited video for 2 weeks now.
For me, it's like an energy thing. It's like I just lost energy because of the whole COVID situation, and I started feeling really like, kind of like down on the whole process, because it requires so much energy. So as long as I'm like staying healthy and getting and sleeping a lot, then I have the energy throughout the day to like divide my time properly. But man, if that energy isn't there, it's just like it's a real uphill battle.
Yeah, for me, it's all time management now. I've just got to, I've got to outsource. I've got to, I want to get it to the point where really all the time that I have to spend here in the mornings is composing / licensing and YouTube stuff, these lives. I do a live now every Tuesday and Thursday. Yeah. And for now, that's propping up the channel. That's the channel content right now. That and this podcast, when it's my week, is the channel content right now, just because I don't have time to shoot and edit the videos as I want to. And so I'm not sure what the future of that will be. I want to do that, and I have several that I want to do like that. This music publishing one really would have been a better shot and edited video. But right now, until I get client situations, and this is what we're talking about today, and this one can move us right into what I'm talking about. When you have, the reality is that you got to do the work to make the money, and if you're not, you are going to feel the pain. You're going to feel the pain when it comes time to do things like, pay your bills, and keep a roof over your head, and do just things like make music, make income to make ends meet. And that's really what we're talking about, the reality of doing that. So
Yeah, man. I mean, all those things that you mentioned earlier. I mean, just the crisis scenarios of coming, down to your last few dollars in savings, and those having your having your girlfriend kind of give you the side eye, being like, "What's going on here?" Having your parents tell it, maybe nicely suggest that you should take a look at going back to school. Those things have all happened to me, man. Those things have all happened more than once, and man,
I think they've happened to all of us.
I think it happens to all musicians in some form or another, probably at some point. And it's good. I'm proud to say I've persevered, and things are looking up. But there was some moments, man. I mean, there was definitely some moments where it was really tough, and I definitely came down to my last couple, $100 in savings at one point, and I had to go I had to do some door dashing over here, which is like I don't know if there's DoorDash where you are, but like it's
sure, absolutely
food delivery kind of thing, and I did that for a while, and I was lucky that I had my car still, and this is right after I quit my full-time job to pursue music full time. I had
how many years ago was that?
Almost 3 years ago,
okay.
Almost, I think just under 3 years. So I've been doing it like properly full time for about 3 years, I think, and I had about $10,000 in savings when I quit my job. That was my goal. Once I got there, I said I'm quitting. I knew that $10,000 wasn't enough to get me through a year of just living on savings. So the idea
were you with your girlfriend at the time, or
no? I wasn't actually. I was single at the time.
So this is only your income at that time. Right.
Yeah. Well,
so a roof over your head.
Yeah. Like I had income streams coming in from playing live music, and royalties were starting to pick up around that time. I can't remember. I guess I was on Audio Jungle, and I had this, and then I was doing the occasional composing gig as well. And I figured that the savings would be my safety net, but I would be able to find gigs. I was just doing it on faith, really, that that the money was going to keep coming in. And it did for the most part, like it did. But like I said, it came down to the wire. It came very, very close to having to go back to work, or finding like a day job. And in a sense, I did have to do that because I had to take I had to do some door dashing just to so I was able to pay rent. And luckily, the dip subsided, and I managed to find those gigs, and I got I got a lot more money coming in, and I was able to persevere and pull through. But man, yeah, there's no worse feeling than having to go into debt, and that was what I really wanted to avoid, was like having to like go into the red with everything. And I managed to just narrowly avoid that. But dude, I mean, talk about stress.
Yeah, and I have been slightly longer working without a net of a job, 22 years as of this year. I left corporate almost exactly 22 years ago, just the first part of 2000.
Okay.
And I started working for this producer who had a studio. And then he didn't pay me necessarily, or maybe he did for a while, but I eventually took over his business and just started to exist on client money. And that was whatever the studio was making was pretty much mine to put in my pocket after I paid my assistant, who was like, my kind of Pro Tool, he kind of ran Logic and was my assistant engineer. After that, but I had to pay the studio rent. I had to do all that kind of stuff, and then whatever I made after that was mine. So, and then eventually you find out that it's better not to have overhead. It's better not to have a studio. I've had a studio 2 times. I've had overhead, and both times about killed us. It about broke me. And so the freedom of not having that overhead, that's the first lesson I can tell you, is if you feel like, I need to go rent a space and set up a cool space to go record people at and start a studio, that's going to work for some people. For me, who I am admittedly terrible at money, and I tried for as long as I could until the just past recent years to do it myself, living for 31 years with an accountant. I mean, I should say a bookkeeper. You know, that's her job. That's her literal job, is bookkeeping and office management. But you know, you want to try to do it yourself. You want to try to make sure she doesn't have to put that on her. And plus, we've had good years, we've had hard months, we have bad credit from not being able to pay stuff. And studio life is cool, and you have the freedom to do whatever you want to do, but then you can have bondage to debt, and you have other things that are just sometimes even just embarrassing to your wife and your family. That you know, why is there no water? Literally, why did the electric go off yesterday? Oh, and there's times you have to tell your kids, I missed the payment, you know, for whatever reason. I just wasn't paying attention. Or the cable, you know, or whatever, it goes out. And now cable is your internet. So if internet goes out, we're completely crippled.
Yeah, you're screwed.
Even though it's probably the first thing you can afford to go out, because more than water, electricity, a roof over your head, you can let cable go for a minute if you have to. Over the years, I had a few side jobs, like church jobs, where I was working part-time, and that added income. But my full-time job was always client work. And all this licensing stuff didn't come up except for the past 2 years, probably about as much time as you've been doing it. Is what I've been seeing any income at all from it, or at least hoping for future income. One of the smartest things I did, and if you're out there and you're running some kind of music production business and you're trying to figure out how to make consistent monthly income, I started about mid-2010s. I started a payment plan, a monthly payment plan, where people could pay me $300 a month or $500 a month or whatever, depending on what we were doing I was doing for them. And they could pay me a monthly payment, and everybody paid on the first. And for a good while, even until last year, and still now, I get a bunch of money at the beginning of the month, almost like a regular job, just unless someone can't pay, or unless two people can't pay, or unless two people quit at the same time, which is what happened to me last year. And then another artist quit, like 3 tentpole clients quit. So suddenly, what seemed like a great life and a great idea, and it is, when you can just make some music, go sit by the pool, come back over here, make a little bit more music, go over to the grocery, get some stuff. You can do whatever you want. You can go to Disney for the day. I live in Orlando, so I can go over there, whatever, any day of the week. But there is a price to pay for that. And what I decided was 13 years ago, I decided to go back to school just because I realized I had too many credits in college to not have a bachelor's degree. And so I went back and got into school to see if I could do it. And then I fell in love with music history. And I also majored in music business and finished my bachelor's and had so much fun. But then we decided to move here, and there was a little bit of a gap. And then I did my master's when I came here. And this has been a 13-year journey to a new music income, because at some point during my first bachelor's, I realized I could probably teach and have another music income alongside all my client income. This is before I thought of sync or stock, but now I could have it next to client income, next to stock and sync incomes. And just have that as another income stream. So this has been a plan all along, is to get some kind of other music income that at once pays well and also is steady, which is something I haven't had for a while.
Yeah.
So that's been the journey, and I'm not stopping working with clients, and I'm certainly not stopping working in sync and working in stock. But all of them, and doing my YouTube channel, which also is now a music income. It's starting to bring in income now. So, but right now it's like I'm working 5 jobs. So I've got to properly. It's all about time management at this point. So I'm still trying to get that part down.
Yeah,
but.
Yeah, it's interesting. I mean, I never had a plan to to make music production the like the focus of my income. It was always all centered around playing live music. That was the plan for so long. It was just like, well, all I want really is to be on the road and get to my next gig and make enough to like keep the wheels running. I had a long-term plan of like breaking into the touring circuit in the United States. And that's something that's kind of complicated now for Canadian artists to get the visas to do that and everything. But that was sort of like one of my big goals, was just to get into a van with my buds and tour and just kind of live that nomadic lifestyle. But yeah, dreams change their shape and
let's talk
over time. And
did COVID have anything to do with the change for you?
Well, it kind of sealed. It sealed the change, because it was by the time that COVID happened, I was already questioning the whole idea of what that dream meant to me, because I was finding out through having done so many tours and being on the road with the band quite a bit, that I actually didn't really enjoy being on the road that much.
Right.
I love playing music, but I didn't love I didn't embrace I stopped embracing the lifestyle of being on the road, long trips in the van and the drinking and the health
and McDonald's
things that come
fast
along.
food all the time.
Yeah, it's tough. It's really, really legitimately difficult to be healthy on the road. And I started to feel like maybe I wasn't meant for that kind of thing. And then COVID happened, and then I was like, okay, I got to rethink everything here. And music production was just, I'm just feel really grateful for the fact that it was there as a way for me to express myself musically and artistically. And now I've found this great niche where I'm like so happy to, to be at home here and just to have a regular sleep cycle and wake up and and just be in my lovely apartment here and write music all day. I'm happier than ever, really. Yeah. And I still get to play the occasional gig, so I still get to do that. But the dreams sort of has changed over time. I had to allow myself to come to certain realizations about that, and I'm much happier for it. So
I'm not sure COVID. I think COVID, the second year of COVID, is what changed my business. But like you, I was on my way towards this new income. Like I was on my way out of client only work. And I have been since, really, while I was finishing my master's and doing my master's, but also while I discovered that sync is really where I wanted to head or I should just say licensing was where I wanted to head with my music, because I just thought that was way more interesting of an end goal for the music that I wanted to make, and profitable probably in the long run. And so I just started to head that way. And COVID, just like you, kind of sealed the deal a little bit. I mean, it made clients less available. They couldn't travel to come do vocals. They couldn't travel to come do tracking, and so they all hung in there for the first year. Everybody hung in and said, "Hey, we will just keep doing this online, and we'll keep making our videos and all these kind of things, and we'll keep trying to make it work." But the second year, when the reality of how different our world was, which is 2021, that's when people started to kind of change a little bit.
No one knew how long it was going to last, and that's the thing is, like, it was just a big question mark at the beginning, and so everyone was kind of hanging in there, hoping that it was going to be like 6 months. But yeah, you're absolutely right. You're absolutely right. Once a year had passed, it was like I think reality sunk in for a lot of people, and I'm sure a lot of people listening to this podcast probably can probably relate to the feeling of having to sort of reassess. Like, so many people that I know reassessed what they're doing with their lives. I mean, we hear about this all the time now with the Great Resignation. People leaving their jobs that they've had for a long time and just carving out a new path for themselves in their lives. Because, I mean, it was a wake up call for everyone, and I think we all realize that, like, life is short and things are fragile, and all of these some of the things that we're pursuing in life they're quite vulnerable. I mean, I don't think people quite realize that. Before COVID, and I certainly didn't. I never could have imagined that I mean, especially some of my close friends who are, regular touring musicians, and could never have imagined what happened, and that their careers would come to a grinding halt overnight, literally. So that is the nature, the crazy nature of life, and I just got so much gratitude for the whole licensing world, because it's it's an online world, and it's.
I think the other part of this whole thing is that I want to touch on in this conversation was not just those of us who try to make music a full-time pursuit, but those of us who are and the people who are listening to this podcast who try to make their licensing or their stock music or whatever, or even their Spotify, the music they're making for Spotify, a part-time pursuit because they have a full-time job.
Yeah.
And I can relate to that a little bit now, where I have to, I don't consider my stock or even my client work or even my channel. Well, I guess that the channel can be more of a part-time pursuit. You don't think of your YouTube channel as a full-time thing. You're not doing it, 8 hours a day necessarily. You might be thinking about it or answering little things here and there, but you're not sitting there for 8 hours working on your YouTube channel. Mm-hmm. But I do still think of my clients, and I do think of my composing as a full-time pursuit, but in some ways they are part-time now, and so that's its own challenge. Finding time to do music, the reality of that is very very real. The balance between where you spend your time in your non-work, your day job work hours is very real. How you balance that with your family? How do you balance that with your other hobbies that you love to do? Mm-hmm. How do you balance that with the TV that you want to watch and the movies you want to go see and all that kind of stuff, when you know that you also have this desire to do music and get music into stock or get music into sync or make music and put it out on Spotify, or play in a band and have practices and go do gigs and all that kind of stuff. So and then the other challenge I think with part-time is the real challenge is getting stuff done and finished when you're a part-timer, because you can come up with a million ideas but no final products because you just don't have time. You come home and you feel like messing around with this, and you mess around with that, and you just end up messing around more than doing,
Yeah, well, a lot of I think, we've talked about this in previous episodes, but so much of it is fine. I think for me is just like having the right energy, because if I come back from I'm rewinding back to when I used to work a full-time job. If I was coming back from post that shift to work on music, I just wouldn't be able to find the mind space to get things done. So there was a while where it was like I'd wake up at 6 a.m, work and get my musical ideas out in a 3 or 4 hour time span, go to work, and then I would do a gig after work. And that was full-time music and full-time job. But I was just in a position where I just had the energy to do it because first of all, I was super motivated to quit my job. And so that energy fed me to just work extra hard in order for me to save up the money so that I could feel confident about quitting the job. And that's how I did it, is I basically worked 2 jobs. And I was in a good position to do that because I didn't have a girlfriend at the time. I didn't have a family to take care of. So I had that benefit of sort of bachelor lifestyle, can do whatever I want, kind of thing. And I didn't really, my body probably, my health suffered a little bit because of that. But ultimately that's what led to me being able to quit the job and kind of go for it with that chunk of savings. So
I think there is a good reality of being part-time with music, and that is there's a little less pressure on your music to perform. And one of the realities I've always found is when you have a job, and let's say you don't have a day job and you're only making money on your music. Those songs you're making, or that band better do well.
Yeah, totally.
And there's a lot of pressure there for those songs to do well on Motion Array, or for those songs to do well on Artlist, or for that deal with that sync library to pay quickly, or whatever, or the band to keep playing and you keep at that gig, there's a lot of pressure on your music. And when you don't have that and you have a day gig, especially if it's something you like, like I know many people, many of my clients have day gigs. Some are doctors, some are other things where they love what they do and they went to school for what they do, and they make a lot of money, and they're not going to give that up to do music for a living, an iffy music living. So they get to really just enjoy the music so much more because they don't care if it makes money or not. It doesn't matter if it makes money.
And that's it's a great point. That's a nice place to be. Especially, if you're starting out with this kind of thing, it's a really nice place to be to take that pressure off, because that pressure can really affect how you feel about making music in general. You don't want to sour the experience of writing music. It should be fun and it should be enjoyable. And if it's like if you're in this pressure cooker situation, then it's like you might actually just turn yourself off from the whole thing completely. So.
The other part of that is that you can use your day job as a time to dream about what you want to do in your part-time music stuff. I used to do that when I worked corporate, which was fine. I didn't actually mind all the computer stuff I was doing. At one point, I was able to do a lot of actual composing and or video stuff and lots of fun technology stuff back in the 90s. I was just doing all sorts of fun stuff, technical writing and different things. And it was a cushy job, cushy office job, cushy tech job. But I could just take a minute and write down a note about some album idea I just had, and I could plan it out a little bit and take a 5 or 10 minute break, or on my lunch break I would go over to the music store and imagine what I was going to buy for the next thing or whatever. But I had album ideas galore. The problem, again, it takes me back to the first challenge, is though once I came up with all the ideas, when was I actually going to get them done? And I rarely did, to be honest. I just didn't get many things finished. I started a lot of ideas, and a lot of those ideas I'm finishing now, years later, decades later, that I said, that was a good song idea. Let me finish that up and post that to Motion Array or something like that. Or a lot of songs, we're on this country album that I'm cutting for my one of my sync libraries. There's songs I wrote 30 years ago, before I even met my wife, even a few of them. They're like country songs that I wrote in my head, I wrote down on paper, and I'm realizing them now. So if you are listening to this podcast or watching this podcast and you work a day gig, don't give up the dream that what you're working on in your head right now, even though that you're only able to do music part-time, it could be something that you reimagine later, you bring back to life later, because it certainly has been for me. So good point. I think the another benefit of having that that day job or the part-time job, whatever, that regular income coming in, for me at least, looking back on it, it was a way for me to finance some of the tools that I find are really, really helpful for my music production. I don't want to make the case that you need all these fancy things. Like, I have a lot of fancy plugins and libraries that are really, really helpful to me. But like any trade, like any good tradesman, you have to invest in good tools. And I think that it's it is a really expensive investment for producers that are starting up to buy all these libraries, which some of them just are some of them, quite frankly, are insanely overpriced. But these are tools that are extremely helpful for me. They make the process a lot easier. I'm able to make better mixes, better productions with them, and that was a startup cost for me that I really wanted to kind of get out of the way. And I mean, these plugins last for forever. Some of them are fantastic. I've been using them for years and years and years. So, I know a big key in my reality of doing this, whether I'm part-time or full-time with it, and this would go for our listeners too. If you're listening to this, and you probably have this now too a little bit, is a partner, a wife, a spouse, a significant other that you share expenses with, and they have a job. That can also be a real help. I mean, we have literally eaten because my wife's job, this past year, she she said, let me just pay for groceries. You don't worry about it. And you just take care of all the other stuff. And so she, we could always know when her paycheck came along and she got a, biweekly paycheck that we would be going to the grocery and setting up for the next 2 weeks, And so having that partner and that partner has to be on board with the whole deal, right? They can't just be like, you want to pursue your dream, so I have to work, type of thing. But I've worked with many clients through the year where their spouse is the main breadwinner. And it's not just women who have a husband who is the breadwinner. That does happen, but I've had it be the opposite, where it's a guy who is a stay-at-home dad, or maybe he makes less than his wife or whatever, or a band where everybody contributes. So, but as a person, having that other income partner is also a nice thing and makes the reality a little easier, because most of us, I don't know about you, but don't have like musical, and I think you do, but musical partners who are also making their own music income. I don't, but I think you have a musical partner. So
yeah, I do. It's like amen to all of that. It's like having a partner is just so helpful. For me, the biggest one of the biggest benefits is just being my health. I was never really great at taking very good care of myself. And my partner is she is passionate about healthy food and lifestyle, and I'm so much healthier in general because of her just being a such a positive influence on me that way. Let me tell you, I couldn't afford the place that we live in to pay rent on this on my own would be a huge burden for me. So,
and scary because you never know from month to month how the money's going to roll in.
Exactly. And it would just mean that I'd have to just tighten up all my spending, to such an extent it would just be stressful. So being able to split those costs, with her is incredibly helpful. And then of course, I'm hugely lucky because she's also a musician and she's like a classically trained musician. So she's able to, help me out on certain things that I'm not as knowledgeable about. And I'm able to help her with the production stuff. So it's a really cool, relationship. I never dated a musician until her actually. So it's been really, really fun. I'm super lucky to have her around.
So, one last, as we wrap this up, I want to make sure that I don't discourage anyone who is living a full-time life, and that this podcast doesn't discourage you based on what I've done. I picked about 13 years ago a new direction to go in, because I said, whether music production for clients and being a label and all that I've been for the last 20 years continues or not, I want to continue to add incomes that are music based. And so I saw music instruction or music teaching and in some ways this YouTube channel is very much that. Music encouragement, you could say, maybe. I wanted to add some kind of monetary income via that, and so I went after that. But not everybody will be as bad with money as me. Not everybody will. They may have a stronger partner or person making income on the other side, so that they don't have to worry about it and do this. And I have to say that while it may sound like my life has been a complete tightrope, it really hasn't. I mean, if you look back at our bank statements, there's more than enough money there every month to pay the bills. It's just sometimes it can be very iffy how it comes in. You get a motion array payment, but you're like, man, I wish that was paid today instead of next week when it's coming in, because that would be really helpful right now for some bills or whatever, whatever you're trying to do.
Yeah.
But I don't want it to sound like this is impossible and this is so hard that you don't even want to try it. But you do want to be careful, and you want to be good money management. You want to have a good money management partner. If you have a good money management partner, let them manage the money. Yeah, that's a piece of advice for you from
that is good advice.
Long-time bad person.
Yeah, I mean, I think I would never encourage anybody to quit the job and dive into the deep end of music, and unless they were, you got to be super prepared.
Have a good accountant and be careful with taxes. That's another thing.
Yeah, you got to guard your savings like with your life, and you really got to protect those. And it's you got to look at it not as like money for spending. It's like money for those rainy days, or those bad days where like things get desperate, because they will happen. I think it's like anyone getting into this business is like, without that regular income, you're just going to have dry spells. It just happens. So you got to be ready for that, mentally and financially. You got to be ready for that.
Absolutely. And it can be done. I know literally hundreds of people who make their full-time living with music, from producers to engineers to players to singers to composers. I know hundreds, literally. And I don't use the word literally, anything but literally. But it can be a struggle for all of them. But you get that accountant that sets you up right. You get your partner settled with what you're doing. You get your family. You make sure you have your priorities in shape, with your kids and with your family life and all that kind of stuff, and do the best you can. You're going to falter at times, but you just try to, just like you're working 9 to 5 with a hard hat on, and you're coming home at the end of the day, and then you try to spend time with your family. It's no different. I always kept my music hours 10 to 6. That because Nashville basically starts at 10 o'clock. When you start a session, and even before I went to Nashville, that's about when we would start session, is 10 o'clock, sometimes 9, but 10 o'clock to 1 o'clock, take a lunch break, 2 o'clock to 5 o'clock. And that's basically the way the music business runs in Nashville. They also do 6 to 9s if you do a third tracking session. But so I always tried to keep a 6 o'clock deadline of coming home for dinner, even though I did music. And I think that's possible. Even if you work at home, you have a room, I have this room, and you just leave that room, you shut the door to all your music equipment, and you only pay attention to, your family, and watch TV and do your family things. I
think it's good. It's good to have a time where you shut things down, and like you concentrate on other parts of life, because there is the temptation to just work yourself to death, at least for me.
Absolutely.
So it's nice to have a cutoff point, like you said.
Which is almost a whole nother video. So it's a whole nother podcast, is how to do that kind of thing. But
yeah, true.
Thanks for listening to this, everybody. I hope it's been helpful for those of you, whether you're making a full-time or you're attempting a part-time income with music. I hope it's been helpful to kind of let you just see the inner workings of two different, completely on the opposite ends of the continent. Literally guys who are finding ways to make music income, and I hope this has been good to provide a little reality to what that's like.
Totally.
Good, super good. It's super awesome when it's great, but when it's bad, it's oh so bad. And
the good, the bad, and the ugly.
Really,
it's all of the above. But mostly
it's mostly good.
Mostly it's really good.
Mostly good. All right. Well, everybody, thanks so much for joining our podcast today. Whether you're listening or watching on YouTube, we're glad you're here. And we hope that if you have any comments, make sure you leave them. Make sure you get in touch with me at makemusicincome@gmail.com if you have any questions about the podcast. And or you could just leave comments below on YouTube, or go to Production Music Academy and check that out and talk to Steve. And we are excited to always get more intel from you guys and get your thoughts all the time. So,
yeah, cheers, guys. Have a great one. See you next time.
Guys. See you. Bye-bye.